Hello Penguinauts, I'm the Bearded Penguin and welcome back to Fall of Kerbin. The naval battle for the future of Osiris is about to commence, so we're going to soften up Tape's fleet a little first, as is the norm. We've actually buffed the armor-piercing bombs a little bit, so they have a bit more of a punch now. We've also buffed the torpedoes, we'll be using those a little bit later. All of our aircraft on the Watson got destroyed by Tape, who kind of manipulated the overpowered 50 cal tail gun, which we have nerfed now, so it's nowhere near as overpowered as it was last turn. But yeah, Tape used that to great effect and destroyed pretty much all the aircraft on the Watson. So with the fleet air arm failing to do their jobs, of course the Army Air Force has to step in and show them how it's done. So here we go, we're going to drop some bombs on Tape's fleet. There we go, one of our wingmen has already dropped one of his. We're going to dive bomb. We want this to be pretty accurate. We need to get a hit directly on the open deck. The bombs still work exactly the same way. They can punch through deck armor and then explode. If they hit the superstructure, they do barely any damage. So we need to aim pretty accurately for this to actually take out this ship, although obviously Tape this time doesn't have the luxury of being able to repair his ships before we engage, so any damage we do is going to stick for that naval battle. So there we go, bombs away, and then let's get out of here before that anti-aircraft fire shreds us to pieces. One of our wingmen didn't actually drop their bomb, so we're actually going to go back around and try again in a second, but there we go. First bomb doesn't really do anything to the fortitude there, but the second bomb's going in and it does hit, but it doesn't destroy much. It destroys a significant amount of superstructure. I think it takes out the bridge, maybe does a considerable amount of damage, but it doesn't destroy the ship or any of its primary armament. And the anti-aircraft fire is getting pretty crazy, so it's time to make ourselves scarce. Anyway, here we go, we're going in for another run with our single aircraft that didn't actually drop its bomb. We've lost quite a lot of altitude, so we're not going to dive bomb. We can't risk it actually getting any much closer to these ships, so we're just going to do some level bombing. But when you're about 3 kilometers, level bombing is alright. I've found out that 3 kilometers is about the altitude that you can do level bombing with these aircraft, because I've done a hell of a lot of testing when it comes to bombing with these ground attack aircraft, considering that, you know, the accuracy of your bombs pretty much determines the fate of this war, and it's going to determine the fate of this naval battle. So there we go, another bomb heading towards another one of Tape's ships. I believe that's the USS Osiris. So if we manage to sink this, it's going to be a massive fuck you to the defense of Osiris Fortress. So there we go, just try and get the hell out of there before that bomb slams in and makes them have a rather unhappy day. There we go, come on, cross your fingers everybody, let's hope it hits some open deck. And there we go, it's going in, and unfortunately it hits, destroys again quite a bit of the superstructure, but it doesn't get the exact hit it needs. We do actually get one through the front of the deck, but it's not actually near any of the critical systems like the boiler, etc., so it doesn't do a huge amount of damage. Anyway, we're going to do the same thing we did last term. I'm not going to give up. We're going to launch our strategic bomber, the BH-17 Albatross. But of course, same as last time, we're going to drop by Osiris Bay first, give them a few bombs, and then GTFO. However, Tape has certainly revised his defensive strategy for Osiris Bay, so he's moved his 3-inch flat gun outside of the city so it can fire at us not just when we're directly overhead. He's also got 2 of his attack aircraft here. Now these are not interceptors by any stretch of the imagination, and they're not even particularly good fighters. I think they're just designed for ground attack. They're not particularly effective in the offensive role or stopping bombers. They're not particularly fast, their rate of climb is terrible, so we pretty much have free reign in bombing as long as we can avoid the the hail of flak that 3-inch gun is going to throw out at us. So here we are. I believe Tape's got 5 tanks sitting in this city now. Yeah, 5 light tanks, 5 M3 Minotaurs. So we're going to drop 2 500-pound bombs and then save 4,000 pounds of bombs for Osiris Bay. We're actually not going to be going just primarily for the ships, because we might not actually be able to destroy those with these high explosive bombs. We are going to be going for the coastal emplacements, because those are only very lightly defended by some structural plating, so a single 1,000-pound bomb on one of those should end it, and those have got some big 15-inch guns and they could turn the tide of that naval battle. So that's going to be our primary target for bombing Osiris Bay. Quite a lot of flak heads up towards us, and there we go, the bombs are heading in, and smash! We take out one of the tanks. But that 3-inch gun is opening up on us, and it's got some pretty accurate fire heading towards us, so we need to do some pretty crazy evasive maneuvers to avoid being shot out of the sky. If Tape had another one of these, if he had 2 3-inch emplacements, we probably would have been blown out of the sky here, because, you know, dodging fire from one 3-inch gun is relatively simple, because you know pretty much when it's going to fire, you know where it's going to be firing at. But dodging fire from 2 alternating 3-inch guns, it's pretty difficult. In testing, this bomber has not survived against more than one 3-inch gun emplacement, so thank God Tape only had one. But there we go, we're finally out of range of that, and we no longer need to worry. However, one downside of how slow this bomber is that even though those attack aircraft are also pretty slow, they are slowly but surely catching up to us. So we get our 50 cal gunner ready, and there we go, we open fire. It's time to take out one of these aircraft. Now this is nowhere near as overpowered as that 50 cal turret was last turn. This is a different turret, this is the ball turret. This is from Aviator Arsenal, so it's perfectly well balanced. The 50 cal turret we were using was actually from NAS, so it wasn't as well balanced as all the Aviator Arsenal stuff. But there we go, they're soon closing. They're firing bunch of 50 cal shots at us, but they're wildly inaccurate at this range. Kerthenian pilots, they're terrible, they can't hit anything. For some reason, firing kind of makes our plane stall a little. I'm not entirely sure what that's about. Seems that firing weapons and stuff seems to lock up your controls. I'm not entirely sure what that's about. Tape and I are trying to resolve it, but they're getting much closer, and our gunner is reloading. Come on, open fire, and there we go, we've taken out one of the attackers. Okay, one down, one to go, but it's hot on our tail, and our gunner is reloading. We just got to try and avoid his fire until our gunner can get that gun reloaded and shred him. He's directly on our tail. Come on, any second now he's going to take off a wing. Here we go, come on, dodge, reload. There we go, we're taking him. Oh, at the last second he blows off our right wing. Damn it, that was an expensive bomber. Oh well, we aren't going to be able to drop our bombs on Osiris, so now everything is relying on this naval fleet battle. The Kruolan Watson is completely out of aircraft, so we're going to use her as essentially just a meat shield, because that carrier is pretty big, take a lot of hits, and we've also had a patch from ASEA for NAS, Naval Artillery Systems, which makes all the weapons armor piercing instead of high explosive. All it really does is make naval battles take longer, so I don't really like it, and Tape and I decided to actually get rid of it after this turn, but throughout this turn we are actually using armor-piercing weaponry and not high-explosive weaponry, although we won't be using that from now on. Of course, the Kerbin, our heavy cruiser, is the only ship in our arsenal that can actually fire over 5 kilometers. It's the only, well, not the only ship with fire control radar. Our light cruisers have fire control radar as well, but their guns only have a 5-kilometer range. They're only destroyer caliber guns. So we can open up with only one of our cruisers. Tape can open up with all 6 of his. 6 or 5? 5 or 6? 5 or 6. There's quite a few cruisers. I think it's 6. Anyway, so already we're being absolutely savage. We need to close to 5 kilometers before the bulk of our force can even open fire, and we are just being massacred. I completely underestimated just how devastating it would be if we didn't have fire control radar. This is much the same mistake as the Italian naval forces found in World War II. Many of them didn't have radar, and a lot of British ships in night actions, etc., just snuck up on them and just annihilated them. And yeah, we are paying for it. The Jason Joslin there, already disabled and taken down, and it can't close anymore, so it can't open fire, and it's going to be stuck there like a sitting duck, just eating fire. And these gunners, the Kerthenian gunners, they're not stupid. They're not going for the closest target, which is the Kruolan Watson, which I was hoping they would go for. Got the Kruolan Watson and my 2 light cruisers just sitting there, essentially just to soak up damage. They're not firing at them. They're going straight for our heavy cruisers, even going for the Kerbin, which is pretty damn far away, because they know what the biggest threat is. And these cruisers, they're just dropping. Oh yeah, this is not going well. We're already losing ships, and we haven't even got within 5 kilometers yet. I really should have probably taken another turn to withdraw my old ships, refit them with fire control radar, and send them back out again. We probably could have had time to do it, but it was just an oversight. I just assumed that it wouldn't be too devastating if we engaged without it, and we are certainly paying the price. But nevertheless, our 2 light cruisers are nearing engagement range. Oh, okay, yep, there we go. The Crawford takes a bit of a big hit there, but it's still sailing, it's still going, and there we go. Our carrier's in range. It's opening up with its 3-inch secondary batteries, and there we go. We can just about get in range with our 5-inch guns on the Crawford, and wonderful. Okay, so we're going to do a hard turn to port, get all of our gun batteries firing at the enemy, These guns aren't particularly powerful, but the sheer rate of fire that our light cruisers have does actually make them a pretty formidable opponent once they get in range. And they haven't taken too many hits, so with some hard turns to port, we can get all our guns firing at the enemy, and there we go. However, the only reason they've survived this long is because they're such a slim target. When they turn broadside on, they're not such a small target, and these light cruisers cannot take much of a beating. They're designed for anti-aircraft role. They're not really designed to be anti-ship, certainly not anti-heavy cruiser. They're anti-other light cruisers and destroyers. They're not designed for this at all. To be honest, the only cruiser that I have that actually was designed for this kind of engagement is the Kevin O'Gara, and that's only one ship. And yep, sure enough, the Zelaharian is being absolutely decimated. It's lost pretty much its entire superstructure, and the rest of the ship is surely going to follow. Kevin O'Gara is sticking on the edge of the engagement, firing its 7-inch guns. There's no point putting it into harm's way because it can fire its guns from this range, so we're not going to put it any closer. The Jason Joslin's beginning to sink. That never really stood a chance. However, our other heavy cruisers, the Nova Cantera and the Pulsar, are just about getting in range, and oh great, the Pulsar loses its entire crew. Great, so everyone on the Pulsar's dead. I think everyone burnt alive, must have set fire or something, so they've abandoned ship, and the Pulsar, despite it being in range, it can't actually open fire. This isn't going well, is it? We've already lost 3 ships before we could even return fire with most of our cruisers' 8-inch guns. This is an absolute massacre. However, now our ships are in range, we are starting to put some fire down towards the enemy, and the Rockdale is taking a serious amount of damage, and it sinks soon after. However, those coastal emplacements are proving to be quite a big problem. One of them's got big 15-inch guns, and when that opens fire, you know about it. So this actually takes quite a while, and our fleet is just being decimated. However, since our carrier is actually based off of a battleship hull, all the shots being fired are pretty much just bouncing off of it. So our carrier is pretty much untouched. So I decided to set it on a collision course, it can't really do anything. So I set it on ramming speed, collision course straight for the USS Centauri. It's the only thing it's going to be good for. The Rockdale's pretty much been, the Rockdale's been disabled at this point, and it's beginning to sink. So we've taken out 1 ship, and we've lost 3. So, not going very well. The Kua Watson's still heading for the Centauri. We're going to ram it at full speed. It's only got 3-inch guns, so it's all it's really good for. It's lost all its aircraft, and if we sent it back to base, it would have just been picked off by Tape's aircraft on its way back. It was pointless trying to save the Kua Watson. It was going to die, so we might as well have used it as cannon fodder. Yep, Zelaharian, Crawford, all our light cruisers, all destroyed. The only ships that are still actually firing are the Kevin O'Gara and the Kua Watson. The Kua Watson has 3-inch guns. So here we go, we're going in for ramming speed. The Centauri is our next target. It's taken quite a beating, and here we go. Ram straight into it, and we do absolutely nothing. And the Kua Watson then begins to sink. Great. However, if we get a few more 7-inch shots in from the Kevin O'Gara, and the Centauri does actually explode. We must get some kind of magazine detonation. Pieces of the Centauri actually went into space. I went into the tracking station after this, and one piece of the Centauri, the bridge, flew up to 200 kilometers into space. That's how violent that explosion actually was. But there we go, we only have 1 ship left, the Kevin O'Gara. We've sunk 2 ships for the loss of a crazy amount. How many have we lost? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Yeah, we've lost 6 ships, and we've sunk 2. So we're just going in for a final suicide run, trying to take out any ship, just take out something before we lose the Kevin O'Gara. I think it's firing at the frigate, actually, because it's just an easy kill. These heavy cruisers take quite a beating, so we're just going to try and take out a single ship to try and equalise our losses. So fire a few more rounds into the frigate, but no, Kevin O'Gara goes down, and there we are. We have failed. What a massacre, Jesus. I knew it wasn't going to go that well, but I didn't realise it would be quite such a disaster. But anyway, down in the south, we aren't going to let that, well, we're not going to let the news of that defeat actually reach our troops in the south. We don't want them to be disheartened. We're just going to tell them that it was a decisive victory, and we've definitely taken Osiris Fortress without a single ship lost, of course. Anyway, so we're launching a carrier attack from our carrier in the south, and there we go. We're launching a torpedo attack against one of Tape's cruisers, because the torpedoes have been recently rebalanced, so they actually do quite a bit of damage now. So they pretty much reliably blow off a single armor panel off of a ship. So it won't detonate the whole ship, but 100% of the time you're guaranteed to blow off a single armor panel off the ship. So if you attack something with torpedoes enough, you're guaranteed to sink it, unlike with armor-piercing bombs, which you have to get a lucky hit in order to actually do any damage whatsoever. So I just thought I'd do a little torpedo run, and there we go. It's just heading towards that ship. Okay, let's swap to the torpedo, shall we? Just dodging anti-aircraft fire, trying not to get shot out the sky. And here we go, heading straight for Tape's vessel, the Leopard Seal. And in it goes. I'm sure the crew of the Leopard Seal are getting pretty nervous. And wham! Pretty much straight into the same location as last time, of course doing quite a bit more damage. And we blow off 2 pieces of hull plating, and it starts to take on a bit of water. Anyway, that's not good enough for me, and I realised that actually in that naval battle in the north, the only good thing that came out of it was that I realised that our battleship hull is practically impregnable to cruiser caliber 8-inch guns. So I think, even though we're outnumbered, we're going to engage Tape's southern fleet. Screw a fleet in being. However, we can only engage with a battleship and 2 heavy cruisers, so we're going to try and soften it up as much as possible. So we've launched another carrier, the KUS Nikolay, and we're going in with 3 dive bombers to see if we can do some damage to Tape's fleet. Okay, here we go. First dive bomber going in, and we're going after the USS Lightning. There we go, lined up. I'm not letting the AI pilot fly any of these aircraft this time because they're just too inaccurate when it comes to high-level bombing, especially against ships, and when you need to be as accurate as you need to be with these armor-piercing bombs. I just want to do it myself. So there we go, drop a bomb straight onto the deck of the USS Lightning, get out of there, activate the AI pilot, and get it to try and fly away before it gets shot out the sky. Right, on to the next one. We're going to bring it around and see how much damage that bomb does to the Lightning, and then we'll pick what target we're going to go after next. The Lightning was actually in a perfect position for us to bomb it. It was facing straight towards us, so we could bomb along the length of it, and we've done some pretty serious damage. Beautiful. That is the kind of hit that these bombs should get most of the time. If you hit in the right place, in the center of the ship, that's how much damage these bombs pretty much consistently do. But of course, when you've got this much anti-aircraft fire heading at you, you can't really afford to be diving low enough to make your bombs accurate enough to actually hit a ship like that. If, you know, Tape's ships are in smaller groups, I'll almost certainly risk diving much lower and getting far more accurate bombing runs on these ships. But I think that was a pretty lucky hit. We blew off an entire turret off of the Lightning. We took out a half of its offensive firepower, which is pretty damn good. So we're going to go after another one of Tape's ships. We're not going to go after the Lightning again, because if we hit it, we might take off the other turret, but, you know, we could do even more damage to another ship. So we're going to start bombing another one of Tape's ships instead. There we go, bombs away, activate the pilot, and here we go. Last aircraft going in for a final bombing run. So let's see if we can get another hit like we got on the Lightning. Take out another turret, because that's going to provide a pretty serious advantage in the up-and-coming naval battle. However, that bomb hits, but we don't actually hit right on the deck. We hit the armor plating, so it does very minimal damage. And there we go, we've lost one of our Pelicans. The first Pelican that went in has been shot down, unfortunately. But it got a pretty good hit on the Lightning, so I think that's worth it. I think it's worth losing an aircraft to get a hit like that, to blow off an entire 8-inch gun turret off of a heavy cruiser. And there we go, the final bomb is away, and let's GTFO. Let's get out of here, let's fly back to the carrier, back to the KUS Nikolay, and back to safety. Right, there we go. So we're going to just try and dodge a little bit of flak. Well, I say a little bit of flak, a hell of a lot of flak, Jesus Christ. The amount of anti-aircraft fire these ships put out at us is pretty formidable. I'm not entirely sure why it is that they can never shoot us down. Probably just the crazy evasive maneuvers we pull. My anti-aircraft gunners seem to be far more proficient at shooting down Tape's aircraft than Tape's anti-aircraft gunners are at shooting down my aircraft. That bomb does go in and it doesn't actually do much damage. Same thing as the second ship we bombed. It hits it, but it hits the armor plating, so it does very minimal damage. But anyway, here we go. Now we know that our battleship hulls are practically impregnable to cruiser caliber guns. We're going to waltz in with the KUS Voldov and its 2 supporting cruisers. The KUS Declan, which is obsolete, but it has had a refit, so it has a fire control radar. We also have the Kyle Hajadorn, a brand spanking new Galapagos class heavy cruiser, and we're going to rain a whole world of hurt down on Tape's southern fleet. And here we go. Look at this 15-inch shell heading straight for one of Tape's ships. Wham! Look at how much damage that's doing. Oh, they cannot take this kind of punishment for much longer. So here we go. And look at these shells just bouncing off of the Voldov. Look at that. Awesome. Tape's fleet is taking a serious beating. These opening salvos are just decimating their armor plating. However, since we've got armor piercing loaded, not high explosive, we're blowing off pieces of the ship, but we're not doing much damage to the internals. And this is kind of why we've decided to swap back to high explosive shells. Just because once you've blown off the armor plating, what happened before is once you've taken out the armor plating, you get a shell inside the ship and the whole ship detonates. That doesn't happen anymore. You've literally got to blow out each piece of the ship one by one, which takes far longer, and it's basically this entire naval battle took about 3 hours. That's how long it took, seriously. You're watching this at 4 times speed, and it took a stupid amount of time, so Tape and I are actually going to be swapping back. However, armor piercing does mean that some of them actually bounce off the bow of our ship, and although the Voldov's hull is very tough, its superstructure is not so tough. So it's lost most of its superstructure, so is the Carl Hagedorn, and it's actually lost a gun turret. So we've actually maneuvered the Voldov so it's actually pointed straight towards the enemy fleet. It's got its bow pointed straight at them, so most of the shots being fired at it are just bouncing harmlessly off its armor, and they can't actually get through it. Unfortunately, the Declan takes a hit straight into its magazine, and the ship detonates. It did a pretty good job considering it's an obsolete World War I cruiser, despite having a refit. It gave Tape's fleet a pretty significant beating. However, we haven't actually sunk any of Tape's ships yet. We've done a lot of damage, but we haven't sunk anything, and we've taken quite a bit of damage ourselves. However, our first casualty, well, their first casualty, is the frigate. The USS Interceptor takes a 15-inch shell straight into her starboard side and begins to sink. Wonderful. Nothing can stand up against the mighty Voldov. And here we go. There goes another one of Tape's ships. It hasn't actually sunk, hasn't detonated again. It's these armor-piercing shells. It's just lost all of its crew, and it's been disabled. There goes another one of Tape's ships. Again, not exploding, not anything particularly entertaining, just shooting at it for long enough that we just blast away all of the parts that actually allow it to function. At this stage, we've actually lost all but one of our remaining 15-inch gun turrets. However, Tape is beginning to run out of ships. Slowly but surely, they are actually being disabled. They may not look disabled, but all their crew are dead, most of their weapon managers taken out, or we've actually blown up their ammo stores. So one by one, we are slowly disabling Tape's fleet, despite the fact that the Voldov has taken some very serious damage. As you see, it's keeling over to the port side. It actually fires a shot into one of Tape's supply units there, which I found particularly amusing. The Hagedorn's still going, just pumping 7-inch shells into one of Tape's 2 remaining cruisers until it finally succumbs to it. However, right near the end of the battle, the Hagedorn fires a final volley, and then it takes a hit to its magazine, and it gets detonated, while Tape only has 1 ship left. Oh, it was so close to surviving. It just wasn't meant to be. So the Voldov is the only remaining ship, and at this kind of range, the only ship remaining is actually the USS Lightning, the one that we bombed earlier, which only has a single 8-inch gun turret left, which is pretty amusing. The most heavily damaged ship at the beginning of the engagement happens to be the one that survived the longest. At this kind of range, we can just open up with our 4-inch secondary batteries, and sure enough, we've taken off a bunch of the ship's armor. We get a shot into the magazine, blow up the crew quarters, and it has been disabled. And the day is ours. The Voldov has taken a pretty serious beating, but it's taken out 5 enemy cruisers for the loss of only 2. So that's kind of balanced out our losses in the north, just a little bit. We have still lost 1 more cruiser than Tape lost, but on the whole, that's balanced things out pretty well. That went surprisingly well, all things considered. We used a supply unit to patch up the Voldov. We can't obviously restore its massive gun turrets until we get it back to port, but we restore all its armor plating, get it, we try and correct that list, get all its deck armor back in place, and give it some fresh crew. And also, we launch another heavy cruiser down in the south because, of course, our carrier group is extremely exposed. We could have sent our light cruiser to go defend the Voldov because it's lost a lot of its anti-aircraft guns. However, if Tape manages to sink the Voldov, there won't be anything stopping him sinking an AA cruiser as well, so I decided not to risk it. The Voldov should be fine on its own. Anyway, as our final action this turn, we are launching a heavy tank. Yes, the PT-6 Boa here at Valley's Guard, because Tape's got a little armada of light tanks sitting in Osiris Bay, and that should certainly put a halt on any invasion plans he may have. And we're also launching another PT-6 Boa down here in the south at Azamek. Tape's tanks aren't actually in range. He's moved them back to his other forward operating base, the other side of the island chain, as you can see. However, it's good to have it down there just in case he attacks in future. And we're in a pretty good position right now, so we can afford to send one down to the south, ready for the impending invasion of Azamek. But there you have it, everyone. Thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.